We have some serious news this morning. One day after Donald Trump federalized the Washington, D.C. Police Department and mobilized the National Guard, we're now learning that the Pentagon, under Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, is actively considering creating a military force to respond to civil unrest across the country, specifically stationed in Alabama and Arizona, in an effort to deploy National Guard troops to areas of civil unrest as quickly as within 1 hour of civil unrest breaking out. That, according to new documents reviewed by the Washington Post. Now, this new force, this new military force, is not yet official, but it is causing serious concerns. It would be called a Domestic Civil Disturbance Quick Reaction Force, and it would be used, in my opinion, to respond not just to legitimate cases of civil unrest where buildings are being burned, hence the United States Capitol building on January 6th, but rather it would be used to respond to protests, to demonstrations across the country. We saw hundreds of people protesting in Washington, D.C. yesterday following Donald Trump's invocation of the Home Rule Act and the federalization of the police department. We saw thousands protesting in Los Angeles over the past several months in response to ICE raids that have torn families apart in the city. And we saw millions protesting on No King's Day, on Donald Trump's birthday, June 14th, just 2 months ago. You know, if this civil response force, this military force were to be created, it would no doubt be deployed in protests like the No Kings protests, like the LA protests, and like the protests we saw in Washington, D.C. And a lot of legal experts and just commentators are warning that this is Donald Trump's way of having a military force at his beck and call to essentially shut down organizations, organized demonstrations that do not support him. It is a dark day if this is created. We do not have final word just yet. Meanwhile, I spent the morning in Washington, D.C., walking on the ground after overnight reports from a lot of people on social media that the National Guard was out and about, that there was an increased military presence, that there were more arrests. The simple answer is, based on my observances, none of that appeared to be true. And before I continue, if you want to support my work, subscribe to my Substack by clicking the button below or send a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas. The city this morning is business as usual. People are going to work, people are taking their kids to school, the parks are clean and open. There really isn't an increased police force on the ground right now. There may be in some parts of the city that I didn't go to, but in the parts of the city where I went to, there was no increased police force, and it's actually unlikely that the National Guard has even been deployed on the ground just yet. Now, that could very well change in the coming hours and the coming days, and I'm going to be reporting live from Washington, D.C. every single day over the next 30 days to provide you with what's really happening on the ground. But there are a lot of videos circulating of mass protests, millions of people. That was not from yesterday. That was from the No Kings Day. There are other videos circulating of DC being boarded up and essentially police vehicles. That's also not from yesterday. That's actually from also the No Kings Day protest, but also the military parade for the Army's 250th birthday. So there's a lot of misinformation being spread. Be aware of that when you watch the news, when you scroll social media. The Democratic Mayors Association is criticizing Trump's crime policy, stating that crime is down in most major cities, including in Washington, D.C., quote, in spite of him, and accused him of making unprecedented cuts to public safety programs. Now, meanwhile, in non DC news, July CPI inflation rose 2.7% year over year, which was slightly below expectations, with monthly inflation up 0.2%. But here's the bigger issue: core inflation reached 3.1% now, which is above the 3% prediction that economists had, and is the first time inflation has reached above 3% since February of this year, and is directly signaling that tariffs, many of which took effect earlier this month, are not working and are actually driving up inflation for the American economy. Now, we're going to see the real impacts of inflation over the next several weeks and several months as these tariffs really take effect. So we'll see what happens next, but inflation is definitely rising in America. Meanwhile, the Teamsters, led by General President Sean O'Brien, are now increasingly donating to Republicans after decades of backing mostly Democrats. They gave $5,000 to the NRCC, $62,000 to GOP congressional candidates, and $50,000 to the Republican Attorney General Association just this year, according to Politico. Texas Democrats once again blocked a Republican led effort to redraw the state's congressional maps. They still don't have quorum. It's now into the second week of Texas Democrats leaving the state to prevent Texas Republicans from having the votes to pass their gerrymandered map. Now, Governor Greg Abbott says he's going to keep calling special sessions as much as he can until these maps are passed. But as long as Texas Democrats continue holding out, Texas Republicans simply cannot pass the legislation that would make these maps in effect for 2026 and could very well block Governor Abbott and Donald Trump from instituting these new congressional maps ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Now, meanwhile, overnight, Donald Trump nominated E.J. Antoni to be the new head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, replacing Erica McIntyre, who was fired earlier this month because Donald Trump says that she released, quote, rigged numbers. Now, E.J. Antoni is a Project 2025 contributor, a Heritage Foundation former employee or was associated with the Heritage Foundation and is now leading the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or will if he is confirmed by the United States Senate. Republican Representative Doug LaMalfa was shouted down, faced taunts and jeers at two California town halls because of his support of Donald Trump's big, beautiful budget bill. He had major skepticism and criticism from those in his audience on tariffs, cuts to social programs like Medicaid and SNAP, the climate change skepticism, and also redistricting. This morning, Donald Trump referred to the Kennedy Center as the Trump Kennedy Center, even though it has not been renamed as the Trump Kennedy Center. Taylor Swift overnight announced her 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl, at 12:12 a.m. on August 12th. After a cryptic countdown and hints on social media, she revealed the news on Travis Kelce's podcast, Her Partners. Her website says that it will ship before October 13th, following her record-breaking Eras tour and her recent purchase of the master recordings for her first 6 albums. A federal judge yesterday rejected Justice Department's request to unseal grand jury transcripts from the Ghislaine Maxwell criminal investigation. Eastman Kodak, the 133-year-old photography company, is on the verge of potential bankruptcy. It has lacking liquidity to cover more than $500 million in upcoming debt. And finally, folks, Donald Trump's summit with Vladimir Putin is coming up on Friday. That is going to be the next big piece of news. I will be providing you updates as we get more information. So spread the word, subscribe to support, and I'll see you soon. Hey folks, Aaron Parnas here. Thank you so much for watching The Parnas Perspective. Please consider subscribing to support our work as we grow this independent news media entity into something that rivals mainstream every single day. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.